Good evening and welcome to The Money Show. I'm Nayanthara Rai. This is the only show of its kind across the country. Every day we come to you at this time, 5:30 p.m. with just one aim in mind, to help all of you plan your finances better. Today our topic of discussion is saving for education. It could be for your child. It could even be for your own education, supposing you want to specialize in something, go in for higher studies. Have you already started working on saving up for that kind of education? With the rising cost, you need to plan in advance and get that quality education. There are many products available in the market, but which are the ones that can give wings to your child's dreams or even your own dreams? How do we choose one? And many more such questions are going to be answered by our expert of the day. It's Dilshad Billimoria, the founder and chief financial planner of Dilzer Consultants. Thanks, Dilshad, for joining us here. Just a quick alert before we start questioning her. For the next 30 minutes, our phone lines are open for all of you viewers. Dial in the numbers on your screen, 022-675-49498. You can also email us at themoneyshow@etnow.tv. 30 minutes, our phone lines are open. Call us, get your question answered live right here by Dilshad Billimoria. Dilshad, welcome to The Money Show. So, this is a show we've dedicated to education. So when you speak to your clients, and let's say, they have one child, two children, and they dream of sending their kids for studies, let's say it's overseas or at an expensive private university, what all is it that one needs to keep in mind? By when should they start saving for first step?
Right. So typically the question is, are they looking at children's education for domestic education or for overseas education? Because they're two completely different ball games in terms of the estimated costs that are required. So while a domestic education would cost roughly about 15 lakhs per year, the overseas is almost 7 to 8 times the cost of that. So the first question would be to ask, what kind of education are the parents pursuing for their children? When is the education goal typically, so that the planner is able to plan the right mix of investment options? Is the education planning to be funded partly as a loan, or the entire the amount that is required for the education corpus is going to be funded by the parents? And typically what area of education is the a child looking at, because that would entirely determine the cost that would be required for the education requirement.
Okay, but when do you advise them to start saving? Like every parent, I'm sure, dreams that my child should get into the best college, the best university. It could be maybe, let's say, St. Stephen's or LSR in Delhi University, for which, you may not require that kind of saving. It could also be, let's say, to go to, Harvard University or an Ivy League in the United States. When should they start saving? Should it be on the day the child is born? And how much should one dedicate for education savings in their portfolio? How much should be carved out and they said, this is for my children or my own education?
Education planning should start as soon as the child is born, typically. We can see that the inflation on education costs is roughly anywhere between 15 to 25% per year. And we can even see that as inflated costs in primary and Montessori schools. So when it comes to undergrad and postgrad, the costs of inflation are much higher. And typically one should save roughly between 35 to 40% of one's savings towards child education. It is considered a very priority goal, especially in India. It's it has some amount of emotional attachment to it, and we see a lot of our clients allocate a large percentage towards fulfilling their child education dreams.
Okay, Dilshad, our phone lines are open and our first live caller has been connected. It's S. Gupta dialing in. Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for joining us here on The Money Show. How can we help you? What's your query?
For my child's education, I would like to invest in mutual fund, especially in the large cap funds. So with the time horizon of near about 8 to 10 years. And I have shortlisted Blue Chip Fund and Reliance Large Cap Fund. So which fund would be better for me? I would like to know, or any other fund which is okay for that.
Right. So, Mr. Gupta, I would suggest that you look at your risk profile first and look at the asset allocation that you need to plan for in terms of meeting this goal. You've mentioned a time horizon of roughly 10 years when the undergrad would happen, considering your child is about 8 years now. Definitely a combination of multi-cap and large cap is recommended. In the top performers, you have Miri Asset, Emerging Blue Chip, and SBI Blue Chip also, which is doing well in the large cap. You have in the multi-cap, you have the Axis Multi-Cap Fund, which is also a good performer.
Well, Mr. Gupta, I hope that helps you out. We get an expert every day to our studios, and worry not, if you have a follow-on query, feel free to write into us, or you can call back tomorrow, same time. I'm going to move on to the next viewer query. This one we got by email. It's from Vinod Pawar, who says, I work in an IT firm and I have moderately aggressive risk portfolio. This January, I tied the knot. Congratulations. It goes on to say, my wife and I together earn 50 lakh per annum. I want to start saving for my children's education and wedding, their wedding, that is the children's wedding, and the couple's retirement. Please advise. Dilshad, married in January, clearly a big planner. What is your advice to a viewer?
Right. So if he's married, congratulations to you. What I would suggest is this is the right time to start planning, for education and marriage and your retirement, as you've rightly mentioned. I would assume you're between 28 and 30 years of age if you've just gotten married. And for that, you have a good 25 years, between 23 to 25 years, until when your child would enter undergrad education. So definitely a combination of multi-cap, large cap, mid-cap is what you can consider as an asset allocation, with some amount of debt investment in the portfolio. Regarding your retirement, you have a good at least 30 years to plan for that. Again, a combination of between mid and multi-cap. And one recommendation is try and invest in negatively correlated investment options, because if that be the case, you're not dependent only on the market performance in terms of growth of your portfolio.
Well, I hope this helps out. Vinod, congratulations, married in January, already planning children's education and their wedding, and of course the new couple's retirement. I hope all of this helps out, but in case it doesn't, worry not. You can continue to write into us and we'll follow up with another expert. Time for another viewer query. This is coming in from Nagendra Prabhu, who says, I'm 25 years old, a software engineer from Bengaluru. I made investments for higher education and marriage. He's shared his portfolio with us, which is going to come up on the screen. I've taken the liberty of sharing that portfolio with Dilshad before this show began. It includes the likes of Miri Asset, India Equity, the Kotak Standard Multi-Cap. Wants to know what he should do for his children's education after 19 years.
I would recommend that, he has a good 19-20 years when he can plan. So a combination of multi-cap, a combination of large cap, and also consider some amount of investment towards index-based funds, because the expense ratios are typically lower in index investing, and the return is passed on to the investor. So a combination of these, of course, keeping the risk profile and the asset allocation of the investor in mind.
Okay, Dilshad, before we go into a commercial break, I want to know if there is a thumb rule that you have for your clients. Education is getting more expensive, even at a private university in India now. It's only rising. if you're talking today about a child that may need to go to college in 18 years, 15 years, 10 years, do you have a thumb rule? How much of your portfolio you should just dedicate to education? Forget about it. Let it keep building for your child. How much it is that, you know, the couple or the father, the mother need to keep for themselves, for their old age, for their own retirement. And third, the one that you juggle with, you know, take risks with. Do you have any thumbnails, or how does it work?
Right, so that's a good question, Naitara. So I would say roughly between 25 to 40% of one's investable surplus to should be allocated especially to education funding for their children, because like I mentioned, inflation on education is between 15 to 25% per annum. And maybe about 25 to 30% towards retirement funding. And I would say not more than 5% of your you know, portfolio should go towards high risk or you know, investment options that are very volatile. That would add like a kicker or a boost to the portfolio, but always ensure that first you've covered the baseline with you know, strong and fundamental kind of investment allocation with a strategic asset allocation, and then move on to the riskier portion of the portfolio.
So Dilshad, you know, before I go on to the next viewer query, you know, one thing I need to ask you is that, you know, just given the education system that we have in the country, it's very unfortunate, but a lot of people feel that they have no choice but to send their kids to colleges in the UK, in the US. They may not even be the best of colleges. A lot of times kids don't get jobs after that. But having said that, you know, what is the minimum that is required to send a kid to the US and the UK? And let's just talk about an average university. It doesn't have to be an Ivy League or an Oxford or a Cambridge, but just, you know, the bare minimum or an average university.
I would say the cost is roughly between $14,000 to about $20,000 if you're looking at an average university funding in the US.
And and how difficult it is to get a scholarship. You know, you do, okay, not scholarship, sorry. What I should say instead is an education loan. We haven't talked about that as yet. There are education loans that are now available in India. How good are they? Is that a route that you ever advise? So, you know, you never really want your kid at a young age to be straddled with high debt.
Yes, absolutely. But you know, typically, if the planning for education is not done very well, it actually ends up, you know, forcing the parents to look at funding through loans. The good point about that is that under Section 80E, they can write out, you know, the full interest payout on the loan as a deduction from their taxable income. But we always try and have a discussion with our clients to understand what area that the child is looking at, because even the field that the child chooses ultimately, you know, the costs vary widely. So it would entirely depend on what is the area of interest that the child is pursuing. And basis that, we also ask very important question, like I mentioned earlier, is that if they are looking at overseas education, it's a completely different ball game. If they're looking at domestic education, it's a different ball game, and accordingly it needs to be planned well in advance by a planner. So ultimately, taking a loan does help in the tax side, but you know, the kind of interest outgo is anywhere between 10 to 14% depending on the bank from which you're availing the loan. So it's really not a good thing to ultimately pay such high rates of interest.
Okay, I'm going to now move on to another viewer query that we've got. This is from Kashmira Sen, who says, I'm 27 years old, a salaried employee. I earn nearly 67 lakh rupees per year. How can I plan my finances to fund my education with a minimum loan? I want to go abroad for a specialized course for a year. The course fees is approximately 16 lakh rupees. In what funds should I invest? What would your advice be, Dilshad?
So Kashmira, with earnings of about 67 lakhs per year, I think you have a very high disposable income. I don't know if you're single or married, but typically your expenses would not exceed more than 25 to 30% of your income. Which means that you have a clear-cut, positive cash flow to look at towards funding the education requirement that you're looking at. And I would say, if it's going to happen in a year's time or in 2 years' time, start allocating these investments in safer investment like arbitrage options over the next 1.5 to 2 years, considering the time horizon is very short, so that you'll be able to meet the goal comfortably, at least to the extent of 70 to 80%, and if required only plan to take a loan for the remaining 20%.
Okay, so I really hope this has helped all you viewers. You don't want a situation where your child at a young age, 18, 22, 23, has to go in for an education loan. As they say, puri zindagi bachi hai. You don't want that situation. Plan today, plan for your kids today. I hope this has helped you out. Feel free to keep sending us your queries. Dilshad, always a pleasure chatting with you. But you've got markets at all-time highs. Several key large-cap diversified funds, NAVs, are way below their all-time highs. Why is that the case? Why is this gap not being bridged? Here's a special report.
Just to give you a sense of how the entire mutual fund industry has performed. So I looked at data for all the 300 odd equity schemes that are listed on, in the mutual fund space. And what I found is that, nearly 87% of these mutual fund schemes have underperformed the benchmark index that they are, supposed to be compared against. And only 13% of them have outperformed their relative benchmarks as well. And within that also, how the last year has been is large caps have been the dominating factor, while the mid and the small caps have had a rather forgetful year. But even in the large cap space, there are many mutual fund schemes which have underperformed their indices as well. Let's have a look at some of those. We went through the Franklin Blue Chip Fund and the SBI Blue Chip Fund, which have given you positive return in the 1 year. So have a look at UTI Top 100, the JM Equity Fund, and the UTI Opportunities Fund. Except for the UTI fund, they have given you positive return, but on the relative index, they are all negative. In fact, 11.1% for the Franklin Blue Chip Fund. If we move on to the other three, you'll see there are other big names from Aditya Birla, from UTI, from Franklin, that have significantly underperformed. Axis Focus 25 Fund, the divergence is as high as 9.2%. And if you also have a look at the last one, which is the Kotak 50 Fund, the DSP Top 100 and the ICICI Pru Blue Chip as well, all of them giving you about 5 to 8% negative, but on a relative basis underperforming their benchmark index by about 7.5%.
Okay, that's a special report, and let me go across to Dilshad as we wrap up this edition of the Money Show. Dilshad, explain to our viewers, they must be seeing the markets, the equity markets are lifetime highs, but the large cap diversified NAVs way below the all-time highs. How are they supposed to understand this?
Right, so there was a total return index that was introduced a while ago, and that's possibly the reason why some of the large cap funds returns have been underperforming compared to the benchmark indices. Because the cost components are not typically considered, in the benchmark, which is actually considered in the normal, returns for the normal mutual funds. So, and the uptake on the index has typically been because of valuations. We hope that the fundamentals will follow, because earnings growth has gone up in the last 2 quarters, and that should pan out over the next couple of months, and that's when you will really see the NAVs move up as well.
Okay, so that's how you all, the viewers, are supposed to make sense highs, the NAV is not moving in that direction as far as the large cap funds go. Dilshad Billimoria, it's always a pleasure having you on the Money Show. We look forward to keep getting you back, and for all of our viewers, we'll be back same time tomorrow. Keep the queries coming in. Every day we choose a different topic. You should also write into us and tell us what it is that you would want us to focus on right here on the Money Show. Thanks for watching.